Hello, everyone, and welcome to a lead podcast. I have the absolute pleasure of introducing Billy Ramirez, owner and founder of Fish Shops. I've had the pleasure of working with Billy and getting to know him, and I just knew this was going to be an absolute excellent opportunity for the world to get to know him. Billy, without further ado, please go ahead and give yourself a little intro.
Yeah.
Welcome, Billy.
Welcome. Thank thank you. Well, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me on the podcast. This is exciting. I've been in the industry for since I was 14. 14 and a half, started really young and worked my way all the way up through the ranks now. So I think I have a pretty good perspective on all the moving parts with all the restaurants, everything from bar nightclubs now to owning the fish shop. Like I said, I'm excited to be here and help where I can, and hopefully take somebody could take something from me and run with it.
And very cool. That's super awesome. You know, today we've titled today's podcast Retention Culture Leadership Tactics for the Next Generation of Hospitality Leaders, which obviously you've grown through the ranks of. With that being said, excuse me, goodness. We want to know, like, you've spent years of developing teams and leaders, and you have some individuals that have been with you for quite some time in environments and growing. Can you just share some of your leadership journey and experiences that helped shape the culture that Fish Shops is today?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've been open at the fish shop alone for over 15 years now. And We have probably 4 or 5 that of staff members that have been with us for over 15 years there. And everything kind of goes down from there. And I mean, down to 2 years in between. So from 2 to 15 years, it's all over the board when it comes to staff. And I think one of our basic successes has been to work with the team as a team member, listen to the team, be on the ground, show up, and help solve problems, and also remember this is a transition sort of job for a lot of people. You've got your people that are in leadership roles that, the GMs, the owners, leads that will be there for a while. But this is a transition career or job for everybody. So work with them so they can work their way through, work for you for a while. Um, you know, Example, we've had people work up from the counter position to a management position and then out and graduate from college and move on to their careers. So I think the success has been listening to the team and working with them throughout their time at the fish shop.
And Billy, I can firsthand, just to jump in here, I can firsthand say, like, when you walk into any of your location, everyone knows who you are and everyone's excited to see you. And there's nothing better than having the boss walk in and number one, you know their name. And number two, you're like, hey, how is this going from last weekend? And I mean, you just create a phenomenal culture there, like you said, with any level. And I think that that helps with keeping people there.
Yeah, it's
When I was gonna say, Billy, what was your first job when you started at 14?
I started washing dishes as at a Chinese food restaurant. I was 14 and a half. I actually had to go get a work permit to do that.
Gosh, I mean, and you're still in the industry, which is, I think, just such a powerful testament to everybody starts somewhere in the industry, and I'm sure obviously you've had many positions since then. But that's the first one. Now, I think you'd be doing that here today, right? There was something that sparked inside of you at washing dishes, that has kind of kept you in the industry, and I think that that's really cool. Um, when you think about that for leaders that are just getting started in their career today, that may be behind the counter or maybe just picking up their first position, what do you think it is that kind of keeps them in the industry, or how do you inspire people to stay in the industry when they're just getting started like that?
Um, let's see. I think a lot of it is if you're in a position of leading, which I think I took a lot of my experiences and just kept those, even dealing with bad leaders at the time. But I think as a leader, just remember where you came from. I think that's what's been really helpful for me, knowing like I was a dishwasher. Hey, just say thank you to the guy if you're walking through because you've been in the dish pit, or even as all the way through the ranks as a GM. I've run nightclubs, I've run restaurants. Just giving that GM a pat on the back every once in a while, but being on their level. Obviously, everyone has their roles and responsibilities, but everyone's working together. I think that's where I think, coming up the ranks and to be able to pass on some knowledge to anybody kind of coming up in the restaurant. Yeah, just remember like where you came from.
One thing I just wanted to jump in because it's something, Billy, as you share, remember where you came from. But I want to also bring Kim into this as well. Kim introduced us to you and shared so much of your story and just the person that you are and how people see you in your leadership. But Kim, I also want to bring you into this because I think you have common values here. One thing I feel you both have the unique ability to do is see the person. So not just the employee or the worker, but when I met Kim, it's somebody where that she knew everybody in the room, but when I talked to her, she felt like she was just talking to me or made a connection where she knows that she cares, and I feel you're the same. For the emerging leader, sometimes they're so busy just doing the work. What's the advice, Billy, you would give? And Kim, I'd love to hear from you too, around how do you see the person, the relationship, just the connection before just the job?
I think you just got to step back and a little bit of what I said before. Just remember where you came from. I think that getting to know your staff, their strengths, their weaknesses, what they're they're taking time off to go see family. Like who are they going to see? Where are they from? Being in San Diego, we're such a transitional city, so staff is from everywhere. So just getting to know your team, I think that's been one of the things that I try to do throughout my entire career, and even as my coworkers, I'm get to know. I'm up as a bar back. I want to know where all the bartenders are from and what they're doing. So I think that's been helpful just to get to know your team. It sounds so simplistic, but a lot of leaders, they get in a position of management or lead, and they just forget. Oh, in one day, Friday they're bartending, and the next, on Monday they're managing, and sometimes they just forget, to look back.
Yeah. A little bit of curiosity to something that goes such a far way. Kim, do you mind sharing a little bit yourself? Because I think this is something you just will.
100%. And I think this is where Billy and I just became not to have a stepbrothers moment, but just where we became like, "Oh, we're best friends now? Okay, perfect." It's just being a normal human, and I don't care where you are on the economic scale, I don't care where you are politically, manners are free. So, investing in someone, giving someone a smile at a grocery store, making it not about you is something that I really thrive on, right? Just doing the right thing, and I can't express that enough, and it's a little upsetting that people sometimes forget that, as we're all busy, right? We all have our things, we all have stuff going on, but at the same day, you can also give a smile, do something nice. And, working in stores on the operation side, on the vendor side, and just really understanding the person on the other side of the story makes everything a lot easier if you're trying to sell to them. It can make things a lot easier if you're trying to work with them or regain loyalty. I'm infamously loyal to all of the people that I love in the world. So there's nothing that would turn that down. And I see that in people. I see some backgrounds in people with that. And, Billy has demonstrated that with several people I've met, even in the short period of time of us connecting and working together. And so the thing I want to make sure that like people recognize is in store that when people invest in you, take advantage of that. If someone's asking you about this or you need to reach out as an olive branch by saying, I need, Tuesday off because I have this going on, people care. Like there's not anything that is above store that people are not invested in store. At the end of the day, in store is our first client, and our clients that come in to eat are our second client. And so I will never live that part down. And I think at every point of the day, it doesn't hurt to be nice. So I will live and die on that sword.
Something that both of you just kind of said that I think really resonates inside of our industry, but potentially some leaders may have trouble sort of coaching on, is that we're obviously a people oriented industry. And you may find that you've got kind of the best server on your team, or the best hostess, or even the best dishwasher, the best cook in the back. And sometimes you find that like that's the person I want to promote because I want 800 more of those. But they may not necessarily have the skills to be able to train and coach to that. Billy, have you encountered that where you promoted somebody that they were such an amazing server, but they had trouble sort of translating that into leadership? And how do you get them to recognize that sort of a leadership skill of communicating that?
Yeah, yeah. I've, been doing this a long time. So yeah, I've made definitely have made my mistakes. We promoted a bartender to be a manager. Great guy, still works for us. And you know, it just didn't work out. He just wasn't, he was too close to the team still, and he couldn't
Mm,
break. And he wasn't, we just because you think that person, hey, he's been with you for 5 years, 10 years, they may never be ready to be a manager. And the timing is always going to be um, up to them. Easy to look from, 5,000 feet and say, hey, that guy's been here, that person's been here. But yeah, and you just have to make quick choices to go backwards, and almost talk them through, like, look, let's regroup, and we'll circle back around, and maybe next time there'll be your turn to be a manager, or move up for any sort of role responsibility. So yeah, it's just because I think that's what happens, a lot, is that the wrong person's promoted. Not because, and they might feel bad because you made them an offer that maybe they aren't ready for themselves, and just because they are loyal to the company because they've been there forever, they'll say yeah. But it's a fine balance of finding that person that you want to promote, or you want to move into a role of leadership, and even after that, you can't just, they're a leader now, they know everything. They don't. I'm still learning all the time.
I think, and just to kind of build on that, something that I think is, so important, and we've talked about on this podcast so many times, is like the feedback side of things. And being comfortable getting feedback, being comfortable giving feedback, it's a skill I swear I'm still working on every single day, specifically receiving it. And but something I know you believe in very heavily is, being willing to listen and, not take things personally from a feedback side of things. And so when you are having those conversations with leaders who are looking to, take that next step or become a manager, and being able to have that conversation to say you're not ready, right? Or maybe that's not a fit. How do you sort of build that discipline to those leaders on your team to not take that personally, and to take it as sort of a growth opportunity in coaching them through that? Or just feedback in general. How do you take them to not take it personally?
I think it comes down to knowing who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Knowing that person, because if you're at that point of you're going to try to put somebody in a role of leadership or move them up, you should really know them already. You should be able to be honest with them already, even as just someone that's just on the staff that you're working with on a daily basis. So you can tell, you guys have been doing this. You can walk in the room, you can say, hey, bar back, or hey, busser, grab a bus tub, go bust the tables. You know, there's another employee that you may have to massage that a little bit with. You say, hey, do me a favor, bus table 8 and 9, because we need to sit that table for the server. So hurry up, if you could hurry up and do that, that would be great. So we can turn that table, we can all make some more money. What I just said is the same result. You're getting those tables bust. So I think that you got to know your staff across the board before make a mistake on moving somebody up that can't take, either criticism, they're not ready, or you move them up and make a mistake, or hey, you made the right choice.
Words matter. That's for they surely do.
I will say that, like, Billy has quite a diverse, sounds dramatic, but I think he has a really great group of people that are in that trusted loyalty squad, right? There's women, there's men that have been with him for 15 years, 5 years, and they are ready to roll their sleeves up. And Um, I applaud Billy for also having this. I when I met Billy, I was like, "Hey, is this going to be a super formal event?" Always he's like, "Nope, we're just going to show up and we're going to get stuff done." And I think that leads to a culture of really formally that reflects on your staff, right? So I think when Billy shows up places, I think it's exciting because the staff know him to everything he's just said. There we go again. Sorry, putting my hands down. Uh, but I think the staff know him. They understand what he's looking for. He's willing to roll his sleeves up when it's ready, and then he's also like, ready to be relaxed and actually ask you about how your day is going today and, what he can do to support them to be better staff members and also, in any way in life. And I think that's something, Billy, that you don't give yourself enough credit for. So I think that's really great.
Thanks.
I think success leaves clues. Like if you're an emerging leader or a leader at any position, you can watch a Billy just shared. And what I'm watching is someone who's world class at communication, calm, but strong in the communication. Like when you talked about knowing your audience, you had strength in your voice and you were clear. But there's like sometimes what I experienced when I was a young leader is it was force. If I was louder or bigger, I would get more attention and I thought I was helping and I was hurting. What I just want you to share a really powerful statement around understanding your audience and what they need because we should know them. That was self accountability for a leader out there. And then sometimes you got to give hard feedback and reposition them. And there was enough trust where they stayed. The one thing that I think is so big when it comes to culture, and I love, Billy, your experience, and Kim and Kelly, if you wanna share as well, that I think that, engagement and retention are a result of something a little bit farther upstream of establishing trust, and we just brought that up, or making people feel safe in an environment. You've kept people from 2 years to 15 years through 2 traumatic, experiences, financial crisis, and then obviously the pandemic, and they rode with you through that, no matter what it looked like in your area. That's a remarkable thing. How do you build trust with your people? What does trust mean to you, and how do you build it?
Oh, wow. There's
Yeah, that's a
moving target right there. There's so many things that I thinking of right now, but I think the most um, I think consistency in leadership. I think being consistent across the board. I think being consistent on what you demand from your teams. I think consistent on your attitude towards your teams. Um, I think the consistency, you know, uh, uh, you know, uh, flows downhill as well. You got to be able to train that consistency to the team members that are leading when you're not there. So I think if we, just pushing that from the top down, I think that's where a lot of your respect comes from the staff, from the team. Consistency, on scheduling when people have life, things happen. Simplistically, it sounds you know, there's more in there. Well, if you're consistent with all of these different, moving parts that restaurants have, I think you'll be successful across the board. It's not saying you're not going to make mistakes, but if y- you're going to reprimand somebody for being on their phone, you better reprimand everybody. So that's a very small example of being consistent, but um, those are the things that's one of the biggest things that I try to be across the board.
Okay. Kim or Kelly, anything to add to that on kind of foundation of trust or consistency?
Go ahead, Kelly, the CEO. Let's go.
I'd say that the trust and the consistency, I think the core of that, right, is being true to who you are. And being a leader is not about, trying to be somebody you're not. You want people to know and love and work for you because of the person that you are. And you may have your quirks and you want your people to love your quirks because of that. And whether that's you always like the napkin on this side, or you like this special touch when you get to the table, or you like the lights at a 7 and not an 8. I think it's those types of small things that team members start to, really pick up on. And that's something that moves with them through life and helps them be better leaders. Um, but being true to yourself, but having people trust that initiative is what's going to be most important to it.
And I'll just take a second here because I think you've opened up something really powerful. This is my biggest failure in my leadership journey. I was uncomfortable in my own skin. I'm 45 now, probably really when I look back and did the deep work, probably into my 40s. And the time I was trying to be somebody I wasn't, and it was showing up in a way I thought I needed to. And it wasn't hurting the relationships, it just wasn't genuine and authentic. And when I could sit down with myself and say, it's time just to say, what does consistency mean to me? How do I show up as a leader? How do I support those around me? So I'm not making that judgment anybody watching this, but sometimes the way Billy just shared and Kelly shared, it's an opportunity for me to put the mirror up and just say, hey, am I the person I want to be for me? And then is that person going to show up and properly support others? So thanks for creating that space for me. I didn't expect to share that on the call, but constantly day in day on the podcast, but day in and day out work. But I think it's a really powerful question for us to say, how comfortable are you in your authentic self right now?
Yeah.
And Matt, I have to tell you, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's what's so amazing about that, or just the important to think about for leaders is it can be exhausting if you're trying to be somebody you're not, right? It is so tasking and so weighing, and I think that that's where emotionally, you find yourself snapping at people because suddenly you had a rough moment that wasn't aligned with who you are at the core of it, and the people side of things. If people it's always something to be working on, but I couldn't that weight of being in a position you don't want to be in or somebody that you don't want to be. We are also blessed to be in an industry where we can make that decision of what you want to be doing and who you want to be spending 15 years of your life with, and where you want to be spending those 15 years. And so it's really important that you stay true to that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if people kind of fake it sometimes in the industry, they get in position of leadership and, ego gets in the way. But if you don't know something, say it, and be honest with it too. So when you're, and I'm pretty big on that. So tons of examples for that, especially but, be honest with your team when you're walking in. I mean, they look, I have a lot of moving parts now, and I know my position, and I'm not swinging the bats every day. I'm not busting the tables every day. So when I go in, I'm not acting like, I'm not trying to blow the whole place up because there's a fry on the floor, So just be honest, say, hey, I don't know. I'm not doing this today. You guys are swinging the bats. You tell me what you need, and then we'll get the facts, and then we'll make a decision and move forward. So I think you're right, Matt. A lot of people do sit back. They're just like they're not comfortable being able to do that. But as soon as you can do that, I have my experience, and mistakes too, is that people listen and they're like, okay, he's this guy's listening. That goes along with they they get to know you. You're consistent. So a lot of those kind of roll all together in my mind.
Love it. I'm literally taking notes to what you're sharing as you're sharing it. If you see me looking up, go ahead, Kim.
And I'll also say too, Billy, and I've seen you do this, but like just the consistency of you asking and then the follow-up, right? And I think that piggybacks on wherever you go in life, regardless if you're still in the restaurant space, regardless if you're still gonna graduate college and go into a different field, just if you just do what you say you're gonna do and you're consistent in that follow-up, then you become a loyal person that someone knows they can count on. So they can come to you, and I've had many of these situations, right, where I'm like, "Hey, I don't understand what anyone's talking about in this meeting. Like, can someone backdoor into this, please? Like, what is happening?" And then other I've had other situations where I'm like, "Okay, so I wanna talk to you about this. Do you understand how to manage P&L and or labor?" And if someone doesn't understand that, I would love to create an environment where we backdoor into what makes sense and why I'm asking these questions so they can learn how to do it. And if you don't create that environment, I think as a leader, you are failing the generation coming up, in my personal opinion. And there's the hands. That's how you know I'm on my seat.
Well, that's leadership. The way that I see it
Yeah.
is the ability to ask for clarity on both sides and put your hand up when you've got a question yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, my hands are all over the place. I'm trying real hard to sip
We're both hand talkers. I told you we would have this small substrate.
being so hard.
I do love the baseball reference as well as we're heading into spring training right now, Billy. So I don't know if you're a baseball fan. One thing we look to do, and Kim and Kelly, I'd love your feedback on this as well. We look to leave the audience with some tactical steps. So, as we've talked about communication and consistency, but relating to retention, what are 2 to 3 things, Billy, you feel, and Kim and Kelly, I'd love to share as well, that an emerging leader could do today that would help improve the communication connection or retention of their people?
Oh wow. Two or three things. So with this new journey we're taking into franchising, tech, know your tech. Like things are changing so fast, and be okay with change. There's a lot of old dogs in this business,
Yep.
including myself, that have to like take on change and be okay with change. But tech is the biggest thing right now. That's the change. That's what I feel is one of the things that um, you know leaders need to future leaders need to do. But also too, um, if you want to be a leader, ask questions before you're a leader. Make yourself better as soon as you get into that position, and self seek out information that you may not know. I mean, we're not. This isn't the CIA here. You know what I mean? We're not. We can answer questions. Ask your bosses. Ask the owner. Use Google. Chat it up. Find the answers you're looking for. But I think those would be the top two, three things is know your tech and get and ask questions before you're a leader.
Give anything that you'd recommend for the emerging leader to focus on right now?
I would just piggyback off on what Billy said. I would say make a decision, even if it's the wrong decision, and ask for forgiveness later, and then ask for feedback later and say, at the time, I thought this was correct. If this wasn't correct, can you tell me why? And learn from those mistakes. And that's okay. In my opinion, and or my world, I would never fault someone for saying, at the time, I thought this was correct. So, I think that you should empower people to make decisions and then empower them in a safe space to ask questions on, like, what they could have done better. And so that's a leadership role that everyone deserves to have. So, I would say empower yourself, but also be humble enough for feedback.
Yeah, I agree with that. The make decision, you nailed it. It's one of the things too is like I love when managers make decisions, if it's wrong or right. I've told them over the years like make a decision, lock the doors, and make sure the place doesn't burn down. We can fix it tomorrow.
Correct. Yep.
But that's the only way you're going to learn is making a decision. And I've made a lot of decisions and I made a lot of mistakes, but
You and I
that's
both. I was taking So, yeah, no, that's one of the things, but I think it's great to be supported, and I've had the gratitude. I'm very lucky to be supported, I would say 90% of my career by bosses that have encouraged me to do that. "Okay, so you made this decision, why?" And then I explain it, and they're like, "Okay, this is what I would have done and why." And like, "Okay, feedback, that's good, and this is how we're gonna fix it." And it's not it's not an island on an island situation. It's a, "We're gonna do this." So, I think that's the best way to foster a healthy relationship, um, in many ways, foster a relationship, and I think it's a great way to grow and learn better as a team and grow and learn better, as an individual, so it's great.
Uh, that was amazing. Kelly?
If I was saying to myself, how am I going to become the next 15-year employee for Billy? Um, I would say obviously everything that they already said. But I would say I think there's so much value in, and we've said this before, being curious. So obviously you're asking questions, but I would say with how quickly Billy, you and your teams are moving and the restaurant industry as a whole, there is so much value in not showing up early to just show up early, but to show up early to take it in, to be there when key decisions are being made, to witness what's happening, and to be curious about opportunities that are inside of the space. And so I'm not saying clock in and take on extra hours, but being surrounding yourself with the environment to learn, to be curious, and to be there when decisions are being made. I think that that's something that leaders can take a lot of value from. I'm not saying tack on extra, 40 hours a week, but I'm saying, if you're intentional about picking a shift to show up early for, to expose yourself to those different types of learnings and decision making and people, I think it's something that will really, advance yourself and, should not only show your dedication, but I think it's more about opening yourself up to those learning experiences. So.
So, Kelly, do you want to talk to us as Billy comes back to us? Do you want to talk to us a little bit about our upcoming lead event in Kansas City?
Woo! We are coming to Kansas City. March 24th, we're going to be at Chicken and Pickle. Matt is going to be there. He is speaking, and you do not want to miss out on that. We are also going to have the Thrive Restaurant Group. We're going to have Tiki Taco. We're going to have Dr. Emily Williams Knight in the building. And it is something that you do not want to miss. So, whether you are a leader in the space, you are just getting started with your journey, heck, if you don't even work in the restaurant industry, but you're curious, register, come check us out. Lead Hospitality. You can purchase your tickets, and I would say hurry up. It is selling out fast, and I will see all of you on the pickleball court ready to beat me miserably because I'm terrible at pickleball. So, no, I'm terrible at it. So,
Just before we close the episode, because we're right at the end, one thing I want to highlight. So Billy is franchising his company. He's franchising his concept. But what if you really listen? He's curious, he communicates, and it's about people. So based on his leadership journey, starting as a dishwasher, he's now moving to franchise a multi-unit restaurant group. If you're a
so
ruler
cool.
out there watching now, this can happen with intention. But all that he shared was know your people, know your tech. The concept they've got figured out, but we have to drive it through those two first elements and people first.